Welcome to another Georgia Canine training video, folks. Today we're featuring Canine Quenize handled by Swiss Police Canine Handler Douglas Moshing. Today we're working in an urban environment, heavily contaminated, homeless area, lots of trash, lots of garbage. And this is a double-blind trail. In other words, I don't know where the subject's going. I don't know where the trail is. We don't know where it's ending. Neither does the handler. Nobody in the entire group has any idea where this track is. I'm going to try to narrate this whole thing from the beginning. So Kenzie's been scented off the scent article, but really doesn't have the track until just this point. This is where you can see she identifies it and actually starts following it. Part of the issue here is we've got direct sunlight beating down on this track in a heavily contaminated area, so it's not strongly isolated for the dog. Thus, the frantic behavior, hitting that spot odor, sticking with it for a little while, and coming back to it. Now, she runs out of odor pretty quickly, and her solution is to run. This is a young dog and also a Malinois condition. They like to do this a lot. Whenever they don't have odor, one of the first things that they want to do is just run to try to find it again. Sometimes not understanding that speed's not going to get them that odor. It's, if anything, just going to make them miss it. But unfortunately, a lot of times with super high drive dogs, this is what you get. It's important to understand that when a dog circles like that, high speed, as soon as having good odor that was being detailed, more than likely they are not in odor. We don't want to chase that behavior. We want to let them rotate. Now, we've got a nice little road crossing coming up right here. And look at how Kenzie isolates the odor right there on the railroad tracks. We've got some depression, some micro elevation changes, lots of good odor. She also picks it up right there on the grass corner and nails a beautiful road crossing over here to the other side. Now, her first inclination is to go down the grassy way, but that's not where the track goes. She quickly decides and learns that the trail is going across the street. It's really important to understand that when dogs are stopped because of traffic at an intersection, when they're showing an interest in going across, that they oftentimes take that as a correction if you don't motivate them and let them know they're doing the right thing. This can be as simply as it's okay, or stopping them, keeping them pointed in the right direction, and as soon as traffic goes by, let them shoot across. But the dog's natural inclination to being stopped for traffic is to take it as a correction. And the first thing they're going to do is redirect looking for scent in another location. Well, Douglas does a fantastic job of motivating but also handling, and let Kenzie circle this intersection until she picks up odor again. And you're going to see it right here. Nice in this little shady spot, working its way up to the railroad tracks. This is what our subject did, exactly. Now, Kenzie's in a big hurry, so she's wasting a lot of energy trying to follow odor. And one of the things that happens is that her speed makes her overshoot a lot of turns and a lot of steps. Now, we've got mixed conditions here. Not only do we have all the gravel that's everywhere, but railroad tracks are notorious for creosote and other types of chemical odors that oftentimes mask human odors. Now, Kenzie does a good job of isolating scent one more time right here in the railroad tracks. I love how she does this amongst my feet. I'm literally recording this right above her. She doesn't care that I'm there. She just literally works the odor right at my feet, picks up the track again. Again, circling behavior, frustration because she doesn't get the strong odor that she wants. She thinks that speed's going to fix it, and it really doesn't. But she still manages to be able to pick up the trail again. Now, this is a pretty cool situation of scent discrimination that's starting to occur right here. As we're moving along, Kenzie notices this guy across the street bending down, doing something on the road, and literally pretty much standing there stationary, oftentimes which in the dog's mind it could be the subject. She obviously air scents him from a distance and knows it's not the correct guy and goes right back to looking for our trail and does a wonderful job of it. You're going to see some great isolation here in just a second, and we're going to be back right onto the races. It's important to understand that when we had a high drive dog like this that just runs too fast and overshoots odor, that it's not a good idea to force them to stop. They need to learn how to stop on their own and how to slow down on their own. And the way to do this is to create situations where they get odor in certain spots, because of what they've done, not what we did. And you can see right here, Kenzie isolated the odor in the gravel right along the shade line of the train tracks here. And now we're back into the track very, very nicely. Now, one of the things that's happening is she's bumping in underneath the railroad tracks, underneath the train, and then going back down the line of gravel. One of the things that happens here is we have some ground disturbance, but because it's not a plant-like material, the type of ground disturbance odor is significantly different. You don't get a chlorophyll release. You don't really get too much of anything that's living. There is a change, it's just not the same thing. So what Kenzie's working on here is not just ground disturbance, but she's working a lot of blown human odor. And I think a lot of this odor is going underneath the railroad tracks, underneath the train, and then also back to the left side of the actual track. She's doing a fantastic job here, really, really isolating odor quite nicely, staying very, very focused, not giving up, and more importantly, not getting distracted. Now you're going to see a big change here. Right at the end of the train, she now decides to shoot under and go all the way across underneath the train. She's never done that before. This is indicating to me that we have a turn coming up. This is what we call the apex of the turn. We're on the inside part of the turn with the bulk of the odor blowing back onto the track, which is causing the dog to try to cut it. However, she wasn't able to do it. So she comes back to the track, goes across the railroad tracks, and you'll see her isolate the exact turn coming up here in just a second. Okay, here it comes right here. Bam, that's our turn. This is our exact track. What the dog was working before was blown human odor on the inside, or what I call the apex of the turn. Now she's on the actual track and doing quite nicely. Becomes a lot easier. We have more consistent direction of travel and not the chaos of all the turns. It's important when all these turns are occurring that you really stay patient. Take your time, relax, let the dog circle. Eventually she's going to get tired and start slowing down and picking up odor again. But while this is occurring, do not chase the dog. Stay put, let her circle. Now Kenzie's going to get another turn on a hard surface crossing right here. Now again, the apex comes into play. She overshoots the turn, circles around it, and you're going to see her come back and isolate the exact track in just a second. Here it comes. Wait for it, wait for it. Boom, here it is right here. Right in this corner. Notes to us, we're now about 200 yards away from the subject, but Kenzie's going to throw a beautiful Stevie Wonder right here. Quick wave of the nose up in the air. This is what we call a far proximity alert from a distance. This is when there's not a lot of air scent to necessarily work, but just enough to excite the dog. Notice how her agitation goes up, the speed goes up. This is target acquisition, but not necessarily target following. Far alerts are just patches of blown odor on the wind that don't last forever. And you can see her picking it up again right here. Whenever you see these head waves where the nose goes up and a bobbing into the weaving to the left, to the right, it's what I call a Stevie Wonder. They're picking up wind-blown odor, but there's no direction to it. It's not something that they can work into, just enough to get excited about. The solution is for the dog to get back on the track or trail, if at all possible. And in this case, Kenzie's doing her absolutely best to try to find that track again, but it really doesn't work because the air scent takes over one more time. And this is where it happens. She just starts working the channel of the air as it's going down the sidewalk. So now we have a significant behavior change. We no longer have this left-right behavior, but a dog that's relatively heads up going along a straight line. This is no longer the same trailing dog. It's not following ground odor. This is strictly air currents, wind odor, scent in the air that the dog is trying to work. Important to understand the difference. But now she's starting to pick up that scent again right along this little brick elevated wall here. I'm not sure if this is exactly track or a little bit of wind-blown odor again, but she's into something a little bit different. My guess is we have track right here. A little bit of track right along this wall. This is no longer a trailing or tracking situation. This is now strictly an air scent problem on lead. Really important that the handler understands this, and I think he does. He does a masterful job of dealing with Kenzie and all her gyrations. Now, the bulk of the odor is circulating from the right on the road, probably from a lot of vehicular traffic, and then onto the grass and sidewalk area where Kenzie is. This is why these alerts keep seeming to come from the right. Now, she doesn't ever really charge across the street completely because that air scent is swirling. It's not a scent cone, so she doesn't want to complete the task. Now, as she goes into this area of parked derelict cars, you're going to start seeing some big changes of behavior. Very, very intense. And what we're going to start getting is what we call a near alert. A near alert is when the subject is relatively close, and near is really relative to wind conditions. If the wind is not in the favor of the dog, a near alert can literally be right on top of the person. On the other hand, if the wind is in favor of the dog, that near alert can be 50, 100 yards away. In this case, we're almost right on top of the subject, and you're going to see how this whole thing plays out. Wind is coming from our right to our left, from the road to the right to the left. Watch the dog's behavior as this near alert begins. Now, Kenzie's going to isolate this odor completely, and we're going to get this massive near alert. And when that happens, it's crucial that we take cover and concealment and we don't move any further, especially where we haven't triangulated the exact location of the odor. Our wind is from right to left, or in other words, coming from the road towards the dog, and we're getting an indication that could be really anywhere. It's literally 360 degrees. But the agitation is so high, that means our subject could be literally right underneath our noses. We have to take cover and concealment. We have to take a defensive posture. But more importantly, we have to think about containing this area because we have to be concerned with the citizens. If this is an armed suspect, a felon at large, the last thing we want him to do is run again and potentially get into some mischief. We need to contain this area. Get a hold of dispatch, lock it down, get your perimeter set up, make sure we have the cavalry on call if necessary. And in the meantime, what we're going to try to do is isolate this odor. Now, you're going to notice that Kenzie's starting to really focus to the left, a lot to the left here in the bushes. Now, this slight movement of just a few feet has changed the ability of the dog to isolate this odor a little bit better. Now we have a focus degree of anywhere from 45 to 75 degrees, so we have a very good idea of where our subject is. Once we have our perimeter set up, dispatch squared away, and the cavalry on call should they be required, maybe we can isolate this a little bit more. And this is also training purposes. So if this was the real deal, I don't know if I'd allow the dog to continue on the search. I think I would just contain this and see if we could actually get a call out. But because this is training, we want to see if the dog can figure this whole thing out from top to bottom. And we're about to start that process right now.
Okay. Probably on the other side. Do you see it?
No.
Right here. Hey. Here.
Hello. Ah, ici, à the side, yeah. Non. Ok, c'est bon, attends, viens, on va faire le tour. Attends. Viens avec moi. Viens. Attends. Ah, yeah. We can, but we can. Doucement. Doucement. Titi, bravo, alors, t'as trouvé.
Thanks for watching this GA Canine training video, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like what we do, make sure you check out my book. It's called The Tao of Trailing, and it's available at www.gacanine.com.